Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Now, I have heard so many times working as an occupational therapist, working with children, working in early intervention, that a lot of times the number one concern that I hear from most of my families is that they just want their kid to talk. So when I first meet a family and I ask them, what is your biggest concern? Majority of them will say, I just want my kid to talk. Many families enter early intervention because they first notice that their child has some type of speech delay, or their child is not talking yet, or their child is saying a few words but not as many as they should. So it becomes quite interesting when an OT gets pulled into the picture and the parents are like, what is OT? How is OT gonna help my child? I just want my kid to talk. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some different ways that OT can actually help and assist with your child's speech production. So the first way that OTs can help with your child's speech production is that a lot of times some kids are just very dysregulated. Some kids have a very hard time attending and focusing. So if your child cannot sit and attend and focus, how are they going to learn speech, right? How are they going to learn words? How are they going to be receptive to what you're trying to teach them? So a lot of times as OTs, we come in to help the child with some of those more foundational skills, such as being able to attend, being able to regulate their bodies so that they can sit, so that they can pay attention, so that they can learn, so that they can be more receptive of what information you're giving them. Because if your child is jumping all over the place, bouncing off the walls, running back and forth across the room, always on the go, that is very hard for them to actually gather information and gather what you're saying. And that's going to be very hard for them to have that verbal output and express themselves appropriately, because they're really not comprehending what's going on around them because they're so all over the place and so dysregulated. So as OTs, we'll come in and help with that attention and regulation piece, which in the long term can definitely help with that speech production. The second way that OTs can help assist with that speech production is that OTs also help address upper body strength, core strength, and postural stability. So just imagine if your child is one that has a very weak core, their posture is very poor, it's very hard for them to learn how to speak, and it's going to be very hard for them to be able to speak loudly and speak appropriately and enunciate the words that they are learning how to say if they have poor breath control, if their core is weak, if their posture is low, because it all kind of works together. So if we are able to sustain our core strength, if we are able to sustain an upright posture, then it's going to be much easier for us to teach the children how to say words. So when your OT is coming in and they're working on like core strength and they're working on your child's posture and they're working on your child's breath control, it's not just because they're trying to get them prepared to do the Olympics or something. It's because it definitely does help with that speech and language production. The third way that OTs can help with speech production is OTs can help a lot with that sensory piece. Sensory can be movement, it can be using our muscles to do and engage in activities, it can be oral activities. So a lot of children who have poor speech and poor language also have poor oral awareness. They are not sure quite how their mouths work, what the purpose of their mouths is, how to move their tongues from left to right. All of those things work together. So as OTs, we come in and we can assist with some of those oral motor activities, those oral motor exercises, building awareness of the oral cavity. We can also help with feeding. Feeding is a huge deal when it comes to working with children, especially those toddlers. And so OTs can come in and help engage your child with some of those sensory-based activities, whether it's getting your child to play with food, touch different foods, smell different foods, put different foods near their mouths or on their tongues. So OTs can definitely assist with that oral motor component, which is going to be huge for speech and language. Another way that OTs assist with speech production is that OTs work on executive functioning skills. So this just means the ability to have those higher cognitive or higher thinking level skills. So the ability to plan something, the ability to organize something, the ability to like execute and actually make that thing work. Or another way you can say it is motor planning too. So for example, if you see that the OT that you have is addressing and doing an obstacle course, that obstacle course is helping your child to learn about their bodies. That obstacle course is helping your child to learn first, second, and third. That obstacle course is helping your child to learn how to plan to do the obstacle course, how to organize in their brain the steps of the obstacle course, and then their body's actually engaging in that obstacle course. And a lot of times our movements, our huge movements, our big movements develop first, and then the small, finer motor movements develop. So that same thing with that speech production. If you see that your OT is doing things such as obstacle courses and is working on those big body movements first, then eventually that is going to transition and help the child with learning those fine motor movements too. Not just fine motor with the hands, but fine motor with their mouths too, because moving the tongue and talking, that is a lot of fine motor work. That's a lot of planning, that's a lot of organizing, and that's a lot of execution. So working on those executive functioning skills is also going to assist your child with speech and language production. The fifth way that OTs can help with assisting your child with speech and language production is handwriting. OTs can and do address handwriting. And so handwriting is definitely going to help your child with that written language. A lot of times when people hear speech, they hear and think of only the verbal output, but also we communicate with our words, with our written language as well. So handwriting is going to be a huge component that's also going to help your child with that written language and that speech and language production. Last but not least, OTs are going to help with that imitation piece, the imitation skills. A lot of times OTs address things such as music and movement and see if your child can imitate big overall gestures, such as can your child copy the gestures for Wheels on the Bus? Can they copy the gestures for Itsy Bitsy Spider? Can they copy any big movements that you are doing? A lot of times if kids can copy and imitate those big movements, then they can also start to learn how to copy those small motor movements with their mouths, which is going to help with that speech and language production. So my advice to you parents is if you are having a child who has a speech delay and you've done everything that you can think of and you've done speech therapy for such a long time and nothing is seeming to really help the child, see if you can get an OT on board, because a lot of times that OT is going to help with those foundational skills, because although OTs are not directly working on that speech component, we are working on so many other skills that are in the long term going to help your child with that speech and language component. So guys, I hope this was helpful, and if you have any other questions about how OTs can help with your child's speech and language development or other areas of development, please leave your questions or your comments below. And until next time guys, bye!